Hello, future teachers. Welcome back to the Tower Languages TKT course. I'm glad you're here and ready to continue improving your teaching skills. In today's lesson, we're going to explore one of the key topics from Cambridge TKT Module 1. By the end of this lesson, you'll understand the essential concepts, see practical classroom examples, become a more confident English teacher, and be better prepared for the TKT exam. So, let's get started. Before we begin, remember that today's topic is one of the foundations of effective lesson planning. We are talking all about identifying and selecting your aims. You know, when we first step into a classroom, it is so tempting to immediately think about what games we're going to play or what pages of the textbook we'll read. But here's the thing. Effective planning does not start with activities. It starts with the aim. Think of it like a blank canvas. An aim describes exactly what you want the learners to learn or be able to do by the very end of the session. It's the ultimate destination of your lesson, that specific target state you want your students to reach that they literally couldn't do at the beginning of the class. So, how do we actually figure out that target state? Well, much like an artist deciding what to paint, it boils down to asking yourself two core questions. First, you have to look at the current state. What do your learners already know? What can they already do? I mean, there's absolutely no point in teaching something they've already mastered, right? Second, you look at the target state. What do they actually need to know or do next? Think of this like a giant puzzle. Your job is to identify the exact missing piece of knowledge or skill that is going to complete their understanding for that specific session. Now, to make a lesson truly meaningful, we have to differentiate between the primary purpose of our lesson and the supporting elements. Think of this as your palette. Just as a painter uses different colors to create different effects, a teacher uses a planning hierarchy. We actually have different types of aims: main aims, subsidiary aims, stage aims, and personal aims. Understanding how to select and mix these aims from your palette, that is exactly what turns a confusing 60 minutes into a highly effective learning experience. Let's kick things off with the most important result, your masterpiece, which we call the main aim. This is the core learning outcome, the absolute primary goal of your entire lesson. It usually focuses on a specific structure, a language function, or a skill. For example, if you're teaching a grammar lesson, your masterpiece might be to enable learners to use used to describe abandoned habits from their childhood. Or if it's a skills lesson, the main aim might be developing your students' ability to listen for specific information, like prices and times, in a travel agency recording. It is the ultimate big picture goal. But here's the catch. You can't just magically jump straight to that end goal. You need your brushstrokes, or subsidiary aims. These are your building blocks. Subsidiary aims are the specific language or skills students need to master in order to actually achieve that main aim. They act as stepping stones. For instance, if your main aim is for students to use the past continuous to describe scenes from a movie, well, a necessary subsidiary aim would be to first review the past simple or action verbs. You absolutely have to lay down these brushstrokes before the main picture can emerge clearly. All right, let's zoom in a little bit more on the smaller details and see how stage aims and personal aims fit into the mix. Stage aims give a specific purpose to individual activities within your lesson. Every single task you do must have one. For example, a warmer activity at the start of a class has the stage aim of activating prior knowledge and building interest. On the flip side, personal aims focus entirely on you and your own professional development. This is your technique. A personal aim might be improving your instruction checking questions or actively working to reduce your teacher talking time during the lesson. So, what does this all mean when you're actually teaching? The real magic happens when all these aims work together simultaneously to create a cohesive lesson. From the big picture main aim, like using will for spontaneous offers, down to the subsidiary aim of practicing the pronunciation of I'll. And then you have your stage aims, like checking comprehension of a reading text during this specific 5-minute activity. Running parallel to all of this is your personal aim. Maybe you're trying to use fewer filler words like okay and right. They all operate at once, bringing structure and purpose to your classroom. Okay. Listen up, because this right here is the golden rule of writing aims. Cambridge TKT standards demand a completely student-centered approach. A super common mistake is writing aims from your own perspective. You cannot write to present office vocabulary or to teach the present perfect. That's about you. Instead, you must state the aim from the learner's perspective. The correct way to say is learners will be able to identify and name 10 common office items in a business context. It must always be about what the student achieves. Building on that idea, there's another trap we often fall into: confusing the procedure with the actual aim. The procedure is simply the action the students take, the activity itself. For example, the procedure might be students play a memory game with cards, or students watch a TED Talk video. But the aim? The aim is the underlying learning that happens because of that action. The aim of the memory game is to consolidate vocabulary related to business travel. The aim of watching the video is to practice identifying the speaker's attitude and tone. You always want to separate the action from the learning outcome. Think of yourself as a professional curator. Just because something is presented in a textbook does not mean it's a priority for your specific class. You have to filter your content to extract the true priority aim. To do this, run the material through 3 filters. First, the syllabus. What does your institution strictly require? Second, learner needs. Why are they actually learning English? Is it for business, travel, maybe an academic exam? And third, prior learning. What do they already know? You want to build on existing knowledge and totally avoid wasting time repeating things they've already mastered. This filtering process is so helpful because it pinpoints exactly what kind of step your learners need next. Do they need new language, where you introduce a structure like the present perfect for the very first time? Or do they maybe need further practice, where they already know the rule but desperately need to improve their speed and accuracy? Perhaps it's skills development, focusing on how to skim or scan a text. Or maybe it's just revision, simply recycling language you taught 3 months ago that they're starting to forget. All right, so you've identified your aims. What's next? Well, proper sequencing is vital for a smooth lesson flow. Practical implementation means you structure your lesson in 3 phases. In phase 1, the preparation, you address the subsidiary aims first. This prepares the students by reviewing required vocabulary or grammar. Then you move to phase 2, the peak, where you hit the main aim and the core skill is taught and practiced. Finally, phase 3 is the tangible result. You must always conclude with a visible production activity, like a speaking task or a writing assignment, where the learning truly becomes visible to you. Before you finalize that lesson plan, do yourself a favor and run it through the critics checklist. Ask yourself 4 essential questions about your main aim. 1. Is it learner-centered? Does it start with learners will be able to? 2. Is it specific? Instead of a vague learn verbs, is it identify and use 5 irregular past tense verbs? 3. Is it observable? Will you actually be able to see or hear the students achieving it by the end of the class? And 4. Is it realistic? Can they actually achieve this specific goal within a standard 40 to 60-minute lesson? Okay, let's wrap this up with the big picture. Here are your key takeaways. Aims describe what learners will do by the end of the lesson, not the activities they play to get there. The planning hierarchy separates main outcomes, your masterpiece, from supporting steps, like your subsidiary and stage aims. And finally, aims must always be student-centered, not teacher-centered. Now, before we go, I really want you to take a second and reflect on this question. Think about the last lesson you taught. Were your aims clear, or did you kind of just focus on the activities? How could applying the specific hierarchy of aims, separating the main goal from the stepping stones, improve your future lesson planning? Just take a moment to really think about how you can apply this in your very next class. Congratulations! You have just completed another important TKT lesson. Remember that passing the TKT exam is not about memorizing definitions. It's about understanding how teaching works in real classrooms and becoming a better English teacher. Now it's time to put today's lesson into practice. Visit Tower Languages and continue your learning with resources designed especially for English teachers. There you'll find lesson summaries, downloadable teaching resources, exam-style practice, and more. The link is in the description below. In our next lesson, we're going to naturally build on what we've learned today. We'll be exploring exactly how to carefully select and structure the actual classroom activities that will help you achieve these very aims we've discussed. You definitely won't want to miss it. Remember, great teachers are made one lesson at a time. See you in the next lesson.